The Elixir of Life, written by Sir C. Viraman. Man has through ages sought in vain for an imaginary elixir of life, the divine Amrita, to confer immortality, but the true elixir of life lies near to our hands, for it is the commonest of all liquids, plain water. Man, since a very long time, tried to possess the imaginary elixir of life. Imaginary elixir of life is nothing but a liquid which can grant you immortality, means any liquid which makes you live forever. The man tried to possess the imaginary elixir of life, that is the divine Amrita, but he did not understand that water, which is the most commonest of all liquids, is the true elixir of life, because the survival of life entirely depends on water. Without water, there is no life. So, the water is the true elixir of life. I remember one day standing on the line which separates the Libyan desert from the valley of the Nile in Egypt. On one side was visible a sea of billowing sand without a speck of green or a single living thing anywhere visible on it, while on the other side lay one of the greenest, most fertile, and densely populated areas to be found anywhere on the earth, teeming with life and vegetation. What made this wonderful difference? Why is the water of river Nile flowing down to the Mediterranean from its sources a couple of thousands of miles away? One day, writer was standing on the line which separates the Libyan desert from the valley of Nile in Egypt, and he observed that on one side it was a desert, but on the other side there was grasslands. On the side of the desert there was no living thing to be found, but on the other side the people were living, and it was one of the most densely populated areas found on the earth. What's the difference? What made the difference here? As per the writer, it's just the water. If there is water, there is life. Geologist tells us that the entire soil of Nile Valley is the creation of the river itself. It was brought down as the finest silt in its floodwaters from the highlands of Abyssinia and from remote Central Africa, and laid down through the ages in trough through which the Nile flows into the sea. Egypt, in fact, was made by its river. Its ancient civilization was created and is sustained by the life giving waters which come down year after year with unfailing regularity. In the third paragraph, the writer talks about Egypt and says Egypt, in fact, was made by its river. Because of the river Nile, because of the water of river Nile, life sustained in the Egypt. I give this example and could give many others to emphasize that this common substance which we take for granted in everyday life is the most potent and the most wonderful thing on the face of our earth. It has played a role of vast significance in shaping the course of the earth's history and continues to play the leading role in the drama of life on the surface of our planet. The writer says that he can give more examples for us to understand the importance of water, which is the most common substance, and we take it for granted. That means we waste it in our daily life. We don't understand its importance. There is nothing which adds so much to the beauty of countryside as water, be it just a little stream trickling over the logs or a little pond by the wayside where the cattle quench their thirst of an evening. The writer says that water also adds the beauty, whether it may be a little stream, a water stream, or a waterfall, or a little pond where cattle quench their thirst. It increases the beauty of the scene or the view. The rain-fed tanks that are so common in South India, alas, often so sadly neglected in their maintenance, are a cheering sight when they are full. Here the writer talks about the rain-fed tanks that are found in South India. These rain-fed tanks are the tanks which are neglected in maintenance, means they are not maintained. They are of course shallow, but this is less evident since the water is silt laden and throws the light back. These water tanks are not so deep, but this is not evident. That means we cannot see the bottom because the water inside those tanks is silt laden, that is muddy water. These tanks play a vital role in South Indian agriculture. Some of these tanks are surprisingly large, and it's a beautiful sight to see the sun rise or set over one of them. The water inside these tanks is used for South Indian agricultural purpose, and it plays a very important role. Some of these tanks are very large. They are large, not deep. And it's a very beautiful sight to see the sun rise or set over one of them. Whenever the sun sets or sun rises, they look very beautiful. It reflects the mood of the hour, being bright and gay when the sun shines, turning to dark and gloomy when the sky is overcast. The water represents the mood of the hour. That is, during day, it represents the happy and the bright mood, and during night, it represents the dark mood, dark and sad mood. One of the most remarkable facts about water is its power to carry silt or finely divided soil in suspension. This is the origin of characteristic color of the water in rain-fed tanks. This color varies with the nature of the earth in the catchment area and is most vivid immediately after a fresh inflow following rain. Swiftly following water can carry fairly large and heavy particles. The finest particles, however, remain floating within the liquid in spite of their great density and are, of course, extremely small, but their number is also great. The most remarkable facts about the water is that it can carry silt in suspension. Silt is nothing but soil particles, and the flowing water can carry large and heavy particles, and the finest particles remain floating in the liquid. The flow of water has undoubtedly played a greater part and a beneficent one in the geological process by which the soil on the earth's surface has been formed from the rocks of its crust. The same agency, however, under appropriate conditions can also play a destructive part and wash away the soil, which is the foundation of all agriculture, and if allowed to proceed unchecked can have the most disastrous effect on life of the country. The problem of soil erosion is one of the serious import in various countries and especially in many parts of India. The condition under which it occurs and the measures by which it can be checked deserve the closest study. So, here the writer talks about the flow of water. The flow of water has played a very great part in the geological process of soil formation on the earth. The soil formation, whenever the soil is formed, how the soil is made, you might have studied in your science subject that soil is nothing but the small particles of rock. So, the flow of water plays a very great role in the formation of soil, but everything has a limit. Just like the flow of water, if it is more than required, it causes soil erosion. Because of the high flow of water, the soil would flow along with the water. This causes the soil erosion, and because the soil erosion has very dangerous effects on the life of the country. Soil erosion occurs in successive steps, the earliest of which may easily pass unnoticed. In the later stages, the cutting up and washing away of the earth is only too painful apparent in the formation of deep gullies and ravines, which make all agriculture impossible. So, this soil erosion occurs in successive steps. Successive steps is one after the other. One of the earliest or the first stage is nothing but washing away of the soil. During the earlier stage, the soil erosion remains unnoticed because it doesn't affect much. And if we let it go, if we do not observe in the later stages, it forms deep gullies and ravines, which makes the agriculture impossible there. Sudden bursts of excessively heavy rain resulting in large runoff of surplus water are the principal factors in causing soil erosion. The heavy rains are also one of the major causes of soil erosion. Contributory causes are the slope of land, removal of natural protective coat of vegetation, the existence of roots along which the water can flow with rapidly gathering momentum and the absence of any checks to such flow. Incredibly large quantities of precious soil can be washed away in such conditions exist, as is unhappily too often the case. Now there is not only one cause of soil erosion, which is heavy rain. There are many others also, such as slope of the land, removal of the natural protective coat of vegetation, existence of ruts along which the water can flow, because of which the momentum of the water increases, which causes damage to the soil.